Welcome to today's episode of How Women Inspire. My guest is spectacular. She is the founder and CEO of Herd.io. This is a B2B, business to business sourcing and analytics platform using AI to help companies, enterprises source companies that meet their ESG goals. Okay. So in the 90s, I remember sort of working with all these companies, trying to figure out how to meet their procurement goals so that we could actually have a better representation of who we're buying from. And I have to tell you, when I first met this amazing woman leader, she has created a really great technology solution to meeting everybody's needs and goals. So while working on her first startup, which is a corporate gift box business called Pack Elephant, she realized how difficult it was to work with small and diverse owned businesses at a big scale. So prior to launching it in 2018, she worked as a digital media director in New York City. She holds a visual studies degree from the University of Pennsylvania and an MBA from NYU Stern School of Business. And she's also a mom of two, under two. So when she's not working on her business, she's probably hanging out with her sons, juggling Rafa and Jian's, all the things that they're up to. So Winsome, you're my favorite kind of woman, because you're solving great problems in the world and you're doing it with your arms full. And honestly, it's such an honor to have you on this podcast.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. I'm really excited to dive in. And I appreciate that wonderful introduction.
Okay, Winsome, before we get into a lot of big words in the introduction, right? But before we get into everything about it, let's actually do the fun stuff. Like in those days that are tough or the celebration moments, do you have a song you go to?
I do, actually. It's Flawless by Beyonce. It's one of her older songs, but it's such a fierce song. It really hypes me up and gives me confidence every single time I listen to it. And I actually started listening to the song. So it came out when I was going to business school. And it was a moment in my life when I was suffering from pretty severe imposter syndrome. I was not only the only Black woman in the room most of the times, but I had no prior knowledge going into business school because my background was in visual studies. So I'm literally sitting in my classes with, my arts and crafts degree next to all of these people that I perceive to be so smart, and listening to this song on the train on the way to school just really, it uplifted me. I would listen to it and I think it's just such a wonderful message. It also has a feature from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and it's just all about how women are always encouraged to lower their ambitions. But honestly, that's bullshit. I hope I can say that.
Yes, absolutely.
We deserve everything we want and more. We are flawless. So that's my song.
Oh, I love that. You know what? I've never had a conversation with anyone about that song. And I tell you what's so beautiful about that is I work with top executive women who are on the corporate boards we all see on the news, and literally every one of them has imposter syndrome, and every one of them believes they're flawed. And I think really all of us getting to the core of listen, and Winsome, you are brilliant and beautiful and fabulous and all the things we want in women leaders. So thank you. I think that song really does it. So
awesome.
So
we can listen to it later to hype ourselves up.
I'm glad to get it. Can you tell us a little bit more about Herd.io? How is it addressing the challenges that companies have finding? You said you realized with Pack Elephant some of the challenges of finding and certifying and getting these businesses on to meet the corporation's goals. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when you talk to corporations, there are some common trends when they start discussing why they aren't supporting more diverse-owned, sustainable, and social impact businesses through their procurement. And typically what you hear is we can't find them, or the ones that we do find are not qualified. So I really wanted to break this down. And when you do, there are two key issues at play. The first is that A lot of businesses, small businesses particularly, are not getting certified. There are too many barriers to this process that prevents them from really maximizing their certification potential. And this means that they're not showing up on the supplier lists that these companies are actually using to source new vendors.
Yeah.
The second issue is that a lot of these small businesses just simply aren't equipped to integrate with the enterprise software and the systems that these large companies are using to make the transaction smooth and streamlined. So these two coupled together really does make it difficult when it shouldn't be. So Herd.io offers what we call an alternative seal of approval for small businesses that really need an on-ramp to becoming certified. As I mentioned before, nearly 80% are not maximizing their certification potential. And even I experienced this with my business, Pack Elephant. I was a Black woman-owned, Latino-owned business, and I was only women-owned when you looked at the supplier certification list because the processes were just too overwhelming. So without the administrative support to go through these applications, we really wanted it to be simple and streamlined and easy to access for all small businesses. So we have built our own list, and we are also, we just launched a marketplace that makes it super easy to actually search for and transact directly with these vendors based on your ESG goals. The marketplace also has transparent reporting so that you can understand the impact of every dollar that you're spending through the system.
So when you think about, I think about, you say small businesses, but a corporation is going to need a lot of product. How do you handle that sort of gap, connecting people with people who can really source what the right size for what they need?
Yeah, so we have a lot of processes in place. So all of our vendors, if you are selling a product within the marketplace, you need to make transparent what those quantity breaks are, what those lead times are for you to be able to actually fulfill some of the large order needs that these enterprise customers have. I think transparency is just how you solve that problem. There are some businesses that are making things by hand, and ultimately they're not going to be a good fit for a bid opportunity, 5,000 units. But there are other opportunities to use that business with more bespoke gifting opportunities. Let's say you were having like an event and you need to give a speaker gift or something like that. There's always a way to be able to fit in those smaller businesses, but let's not pretend that every business is going to be a fit for every occasion. I think Herd.io addresses that.
So Pack Elephant was a gift box or corporate gifting in general, but you just started a new company called Herd.io. Can you tell me a little bit about what made you want to transition into Herd.io? And boy, is that a different business model?
It's very different, but Pack Elephant really did help me understand this problem that Herd.io was solving because we were dealing with it firsthand. We were looking for vendors that were diverse, own social impact, or sustainable, and vetting them just created this really big bottleneck for us because we were doing everything manually. So finding these businesses, understanding the sustainable business practices as they pertain to different product categories, keeping track of the impact that we are creating through the social enterprise models, but also through just our sourcing approach in general was very time consuming, and it was not an efficient process at all. We were basically just taking everyone's word for it and going off of an honor system, but that also leaves you kind of vulnerable. So when I started looking in the marketplace, there really were not any solutions that were helping to ID small businesses in this way. And there's just not one single simple tool that's accessible for small businesses that you can use. So a good example of this is, if you're on Google looking up businesses, Google Businesses does have tags for diverse owned businesses, but that's all self-reported. There's no vetting system that's integrated, and that's where Herd.io comes in, and that's what differentiates us.
Okay, you use the magic word that everyone's talking about today, AI. So are you using AI to help those businesses, or how does that even work? And are you an AI expert, or how do you?
I have AI experts on my team, and I am fascinated by what it can do. So we are using AI to build what I call an ESG super graph of every small business in the USA. So we're starting with our businesses in our platform, but we're rapidly expanding. And without getting into too much detail, what we do is scrape text and image data from over 10 sources so that we can tag all of these small businesses across 52 different ESG dimensions. So ESG typically is described as just like this one concept, but we really do break it down a lot. And there are a lot of examples of what we would consider, an ESG dimension. So a business can be veteran owned or use 100% biodegradable packaging, for example. We can get more complex and look for businesses that provide employment to adults with disabilities. So basically, the result of our algorithm is going to create a set of credibility scores across each of these dimensions to create a very holistic picture of how each small business is creating impact in our society.
I'm not asking for permission anymore. I'm not asking for a seat at the table. My friends, this is the first generation of us. We have a huge opportunity. We have power and influence and wealth. And we can start building the tables where we get the prime seats. Today, we want to invite you to join us as investors in venture. I know no one's asked you to do it before. It might be something that seems scary or foreign, but I promise you it's not that different than investing in a mutual fund where your retirement funds are. I want you to lean in and just learn a little bit more. How about making the commitment that in the next 12 months, you can give yourself 12 months to figure it out and to take a step. I want to invite you to be part of the new table of power and influence and wealth. You're invited. I want to sit at the table with you because we're going to make big change. We're going to make the world we've been dreaming of. Fantastic. I mean, I just honestly, from the early 90s, I remember working on this and we couldn't solve the problem. And I cannot believe it's been so long, 30 years, and you're, as far as I can tell, one of the first solutions that actually does it in a comprehensive way and really gets people access and sort of that early certification, which is kind of a big deal. Okay. How did digital media director turn out to be an entrepreneur in this way? Like
it was a windy journry.
Yeah, I think arts and crafts might be a little bit of a lightweight way of describing it, because for someone spreadsheets but doesn't know how to do anything visual, I really appreciate people who can do that. But
so, I mean, it's interesting. I never imagined that I would be doing this 10 years ago when I was a digital media director. But when I look back at my experience, I think there's some big takeaways. And one of the things I was thinking about recently is actually, while I was a digital media director, we were going through a pretty major shift in industry. And that was the introduction of all of these ad exchanges that would consolidate ad space and media from these different publisher websites and allow buyers to actually go in and transact directly and filter using machine learning and just all of these different data overlays to get super targeted with what we wanted to buy. So in a way, I like to think that thought process is kind of what's led me to where I am today with Herd.io, using data, using AI to help search and vet all of the different buy opportunities that exist. The second takeaway, which is a little bit more obvious, is that when in media, you're constantly on the giving and receiving end of gifting. So between vendors were gifting to us, we're gifting to our clients. I'm receiving gifts from my corporation as an employee. And I always thought it interesting that we weren't supporting businesses in our community with this process. I mean, everyone loves a Starbucks gift card or an Amazon gift card, right? We're going to use that. But ultimately, there are just so many small mom and pop shops in New York City, small restaurants that we really could have been leveraging if we had the wherewithal to do so in a streamlined way. So I think that always kind of bothered me. And I really do want to bridge that gap. And I hope Herd.io is a solution for that.
Not that many people go from that kind of a background to an MBA and then starting an entrepreneurial journey. Give me a couple minutes on like, how did that thought process go? And what's so great about it, you are so unique in the market because of that background, right? You have a way of approaching.
Yeah, it's a different perspective for sure. I mean, visual studies it's very interdisciplinary, and it was new when I discovered it at Penn back in 2008. So
I mean, TikTok wasn't around yet, right? Like Instagram,
no,
TikTok, all these things were like the
Instagram was
first
like
from
brand
women, like,
new.
oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So it's the intersection of fine art, but also the biology of how we see, the perception of what we see based on our social conditioning. And it was just really cool to put those things together that you don't really think of as a major. I was introduced to so many interesting people. A lot of my colleagues and classmates went on to become small business owners. And yeah, I think that at the time, after I graduated, I was a little confused. I'm like, okay, what do I do with the visual studies degree?
In
Advertising.
2008, the world was really crappy too. That was one of those.
It was not the best job searching environment.
Yeah.
But, when I did find my footing in advertising, it was a path that made a lot of sense. And I quickly realized that I wanted to learn just so much more. And I knew that I needed some more business skills. So I went back to business school, and at NYU, I discovered social entrepreneurship. So I remember taking this class in social entrepreneurship, and it was just the first time that I saw that, yes, you can have capitalism for good. There is such a thing as a triple bottom line, and that solving real humanitarian issues does not need to, it is not the opposite of having a successful for-profit business.
I love that. Thank you so much for making it easier for everybody else to do the same. Do you actually advise any of the companies on the platform on their visual presence to make it a little bit more, not everybody has that skill set, right?
Yeah, I do. We do have we have some strict guidelines for the businesses that are onboarding their products about how they should be presented. Of course, we give a little bit of a creative authorship to those businesses. We want them to represent themselves the way they want to. But of course, making sure that everything is photographed on white or is a functional photo that demonstrates the use of the product that they're selling. There are also other things that we encourage our businesses to really think about when they're filling out their profiles, how they talk about themselves as a business, how they structure the pricing of their products so that it is really attractive for bulk purchases. We go in with our vendors to make sure that they are successful.
Well, what a gift to them too, to just get that tutorial. Because as you know, well, it's hard to be an entrepreneur and be able to do all of the things well,
It is. It is.
Having that bridge to business development opportunities is humongous. So do you have a success story or a milestone that maybe you can share with us?
I would say the biggest milestone is getting this platform live and in the hands of users. We went through a pretty long technology build process, which most companies do. And I don't think you really hear about that long path to getting to, it's not the finish line, it's the starting line, that whole journey to get to the starting line and having your products in the hands of your customers. So we launched in May, and now we are just about to cross that 200 mark. So 200 vendors onboarded into the system.
Fantastic. Sounds like a critical mass moment. Okay, we're about to walk into this fall season where a lot of us are starting to think about holiday gifts and stuff. If somebody listens to this, wants to talk to their company about Herd.io, what do they do?
Well, if you want to talk to your company about Herd.io, I would love to join in the conversation, but you can visit us on Herd.io. And one of the things that I would just keep in mind is, as you discuss the importance of this within your holiday gift strategy, supporting small businesses, ESG aligned businesses in our community, it is the right thing to do, but it's not just the right thing to do. It really is the smart thing to do. And I think that's one thing that I want people to take away from this. There is a 3.5x multiplier in circulated revenue when you source from local suppliers. Making sustainable B2B revenue channels for historically marginalized business owners, that not only supports the business, it creates job opportunities in those communities. It creates generational wealth. It closes the wealth gap. There are so many reasons that this makes sense economically. And that's why that's why it should make you feel good. That's why it's the right thing to do. But I want people to understand that, sourcing from ESG aligned businesses, really, it is going to drive our economy. And it's, something that we should take really seriously.
Like if in your own company, like your employees, doing things that are aligned with their values is going to make them feel, and saying this is a gift that was sourced from this type of meeting this of the 52 ESG guidelines. And tell your clients that as well. It's a lot of us are like, oh, don't send me a gift. But it's like, if it's a gift with a story and I feel good about it, I'm like, okay, I'll take the gift.
Yeah. If it's creating impact, then that changes the perception.
Exactly,
It does.
Exactly. Okay, Winsome, I feel like, and I'll just say, I'm like Winsome's biggest fan, invested in her company, like 100% all over it, making sure that everybody knows about this amazing entrepreneur. Thank you so much. I loved this. You did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.